Good morning, honorable members. And we're going to ask the honorable member from Southern Shores to lead us in a word of prayer.
We pray, God, that the proceeding in this house, God, be glorifying to you. We'll bring you honor and will bring you glory. We thank you for this great opportunity to lead our nation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Let us repeat the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good morning, honorable members. When we suspended last night, I can let Kia do it.
Okay, sure.
When we suspended last night, we were debating the midterm budget report. I presume you are ready to start. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Golden Gates.
Mr. Deputy, I would like to start by recognizing a group of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed young people in our gallery today. They are the students of Remnant Academy on Carmichael Road. And this is just half of the group. Another half is in another chamber watching. And I want to say good morning to you. We had some conversations with them this morning, and they said they watch us sometimes on television, colleagues. They say sometimes we don't behave well, but I assured them that today we will do our best to model good behavior to you. But please forgive us if we get a little loud. This is a debate. We don't dislike each other, but we just have differing views. I want to welcome the students. We have one in particular that I know is from Golden Gates, and her name is Janaya Bridgewater. I think she's in the other chamber. But I want to welcome you. We hope that one day some of you will take our seats in this place. So welcome.
Honorable members, we also have in the chamber today a former Reverend Melvin Grant, a former chaplain of the House of Assembly. Yes. Welcome, sir. Welcome back. Huh? Are you with the students? Oh, well, we should have asked you to pray this morning, but anyway. Yeah. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Golden Gates.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, I am pleased to contribute today to this 2024-25 midterm budget. And based on all of the reports from my colleagues yesterday, I recall many plans being laid out over the past 3 years. And based on what has been reported, it seems like we are on track. It's good to see many of our plans coming to fruition, and it's good to hear the reports of hope that we are delivering to the Bahamian people. While we acknowledge that there's much more to be done, I see that we are on a steady track, and of course that is good news, not for only this administration, but in particular for the Bahamian people. So, Deputy, I have had a remarkable journey with the people of Golden Gates over the past 3 years now. And during those 3 years, we've seen many positive changes, both in our constituency and, of course, as I would have noted, through the contributions of my colleagues in our nation. In September of 2021, upon becoming the Member of Parliament for the constituency of Golden Gates, and I must say this is a constituency of hard-working, resilient people, but many of them in our initial conversations noted that they were struggling. And that was as a result of trying to make ends meet as a result of the pandemic. Then there was a resulting recession. Of course, there's inflation. And we can't take for granted that there were some policies of the former administration that also assisted in this inability for our people to survive. We can't forget that as a result of the pandemic, there were resulting curfews, there were lockdowns, there were some businesses that were unable to open. And I have in particular some young men in our constituency who are excursion and jet ski operators, Robbie and the guys. And I remember them specifically saying to me that they felt a state of desperation and financial ruin. But, Mr. Deputy, based on the reports of colleagues yesterday, and I'm sure we will hear more today, the times have changed for the better. People are finding their stride, just as our nation is finding its stride. Businesses are making profits, and in Golden Gates, we are on board with the strides that are being made. We are paving roads. We are rehabilitating parks. We are hosting job fairs and ensuring that people are being hired. We are providing creative outlets for youth, for young people. And we are also providing mental health counseling, securing hundreds of thousands of dollars in academic scholarships. And we also have a Golden Gates health insurance plan. And of course, every day, we're working to make our community safer. Because of time, I will just encourage residents of Golden Gates. We have a lot on our constituency agenda for 2025 as usual. So if you will, those who have not already, like and follow me on social media platforms at Pia Glover Roll, and that's on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok to stay updated on the full calendar of exciting constituency activities that are happening every month. And yes, Mr. Deputy, we have events every month in Golden Gates. In fact, we have multiple events per month in Golden Gates. If you are a Golden Gates constituent and you have not already joined our Golden Gates WhatsApp constituency broadcast, you may do so at 819-4PIA. That is 819-4742. There's also a WhatsApp link that's embedded at the top of my Facebook page, and you can message me directly by clicking on that link. Mr. Deputy, the past 3.5 years have been quite a journey. We have innovated with policies and initiatives to take this country toward new horizons. And we have confronted many of the long-standing issues that have plagued our country for decades. I must say that at 51, approaching 52, we are at a place in our nation where there's the revisit of many policies, of course, even legislation, but there are a number of long-standing issues that simply haven't been addressed for decades. And Mr. Deputy, I would like to say that this administration has taken on those long-standing issues and is doing the heavy lifting. But let me also use this opportunity to give a heartfelt thank you, as I always do, to the amazing teams at the Ministries of Labor and Public Service, employees in every unit in the Department of Public Service, the Public Service Commission, the Department of Labor, employees of our Labor Relations Unit, our HR consultants, and our Special Projects Unit. Mr. Deputy, I'd like to say that our Special Projects Unit in the Ministry of Labor and Public Service are leading the charge with ensuring that our backlogs and our long-standing issues are addressed. And I want to note that these dedicated and focused special projects units are led by retirees who have under their wing strategically placed young, mid-level public servants who are understudying their work. And of course, Mr. Deputy, there's the administrative teams. There's our Director of Labor at the Department of Labor, Mr. Howard Thompson, US's Bullard and Hall, and our exceptional leadership by our Permanent Secretary, Ms. Gina Thompson. They are an amazing team. They understand the assignment, and they know that it is for the people, and we are getting it done. There's no excuses. We're not paying attention to the chatter, as the young people say, just motion. Mr. Deputy, our GDP now stands at over $14 billion. The highest GDP on record. We've increased GDP per capita from $28,000 per person in 2021 to $36,000 per person in 2024. The IMF projects that we'll be at $38,000 in 2026, which means our economy would have produced $10,000 in additional value per person living in the Bahamas. And that's a projected $10,000 more per person in 5 years, Mr. Deputy. We've taken the economy far beyond where it was in 2019, when our GDP per capita stood at $33,000. We had 2 consecutive record tourism years. And of course, unemployment is at its lowest rate in over 17 years. As the Prime Minister would have noted yesterday, the IMF, no wonder, said our recovery has been remarkable. Mr. Deputy, as much as things have improved, we still have a long way to go. We've not yet met the standard that we set for ourselves, which is to build a fair and prosperous Bahamas for everyone. And Mr. Deputy, that can't and won't happen overnight. But we're making progress. We're headed toward prosperity. We're headed towards bringing back the principles of economic fairness and justice in our society. And Mr. Deputy, we are beginning with taxes. We're lowering VAT for Bahamian families. In fact, today, we have before us a bill that specifies the details of the upcoming 50% VAT reduction on unprepared foods. It's an extensive list that will provide real savings for families. We're introducing corporate taxes on corporations with revenues in the hundreds of millions. And Mr. Deputy, we have 2 bills before us today to ensure a smooth rollout of the domestic top-up tax as we get large businesses to contribute more to our revenues. We are investing millions into youth, women, persons with disabilities who want to start and expand their businesses, bridging the opportunity gap for those often underrepresented groups. We've maintained high levels of social support while rolling out major educational reforms. We've expanded access to affordable homes and taking on a cost of living crisis that our predecessors never even pretended to address. We lowered VAT from 12% to 10%. We lowered customs duties, we increased minimum wage, and we even introduced new price controls. And while these changes help to soften the blow of inflation, they don't deliver the needed relief for Bahamian families. But now, Mr. Deputy, as people see light bills going down, they're starting to see the results of our efforts. People saw egg prices drop this week and got excited. They now understand what we were speaking about all last year when we talked about finding new trade partners where we can generate significant savings in local stores. Mr. Deputy, for my part, in my role as the Minister of Labor and the Public Service, I'm locked in on a people-focused agenda. As our Prime Minister said, the measure of our success will be determined by the positive impact we've made on the Bahamian people. He's right, and for us, it's always and has always been about the people. When it comes to labor and public service, our track record is well known. And you know, Mr. Deputy, I've had people approach me on the street and say they never knew what Ministry of Public Service did. They never knew anything about the Ministry of Public Service, and now they're hearing a lot more. They're understanding the role that Ministry of Public Service plays, and they are appreciative of the work that is done at the Ministry of Public Service. People also thought that labor relations were irreparably broken when we took office in 2021. There was not a single industrial agreement signed in over 4 years. We got in, and with the help of our labor relations unit, we immediately got to work repairing the damage. Our predecessors signed 0 agreements in 4 years. We signed 54 industrial agreements in 3 years. And Mr. Deputy, these agreements deliver salary and benefit increases for tens of thousands of public and private sector employees, including our hardworking nurses, teachers, and men and women in our uniform branches. These 54 agreements place an additional $40 million in the pockets of Bahamian workers. And no matter how people try to say what didn't happen, $40 million in the pockets of Bahamian workers is seen and felt by those workers. And they are a testament, and they are telling the stories of the gratefulness of us moving forward with a labor agenda. And we're now at a point where many of our labor agreements are coming to an end. And we're preparing for a second round of signings. And second signings, Mr. Deputy, let me clarify, wouldn't be possible if we weren't delivering on the clauses in the previously signed agreements. Great. So that squashes that argument. We're making a second lap on labor agreements when the F&M couldn't even get out of the starting blocks. 0 agreements signed, and all of a sudden, now they want to act like they care. They want to announce a plan talking about fair play. Now, Mr. Deputy, when they treated public servants unfairly for their entire term, I'm concerned about this plan because it tells me that they aren't paying attention. Because this administration rolled out a plan in January of 2022. And at a time when the world was experiencing the worst inflation in years, they stopped annual increments designed to help public servants cope with inflation. Now, the young people say again, that's a cold-blooded move. But we brought increments back. They're talking about a plan for fair play. And just about everything in their plan, if they were paying attention, we are already doing. We already have a structured public service hiring system in place. The new and improved PSPEP is right there. We already have succession planning in the works. We already limited rehired pensioners to below 2% of the public service. Been there, done that, Mr. Deputy. Anyone who's been paying attention knows that unlike the members opposite, we haven't just started talking about succession planning. In fact, Mr. Deputy, I have with me today our 9th point in our 10-point plan for the reimagination of the public service. And Mr. Deputy, this is titled Detailing Career Paths and Succession Planning. And this was accompanied in January 2022 by a press release that stated, we are expanding the existing infrastructure to facilitate projected growth and public service succession planning. January 2022, Mr. Deputy. This plan will eventually eliminate the need to bring back so many pensioners to fill technical and experience gaps. The Davis administration didn't create this problem, but we're fixing it once and for all. And this is far from the only long-standing problem we are fixing. So, Deputy, time doesn't permit, but I will just touch on the fact that in short order, I will bring to Parliament some ILO conventions that we will present that we've ratified, that we need to report on, that we've been delinquent in reporting since 1997. So when we talk about long-standing issues throughout the public service, they are far and wide. But let's take a moment to also speak about our plans to reform labor laws. Our labor reforms will be rolled out this year, modernizing every major labor-related law, including the Employment Act, the Industrial Relations Act, the Public Service Act, general orders. And we are introducing new policies to adapt to climate change and digitalization in line with the just transition of the ILO. We are aligning local labor policies with international workers' rights. And we're introducing new policies like expanded maternity leave, paternity leave, regulations on casual laborers, and mental health leave. Mr. Deputy, these are 21st century policies that we are introducing for a modern Bahamian workforce. And I want to stress that we're working on these reforms in close partnership and consultation with every union in this nation, as well as the employer confederations and government agencies. And that, Mr. Deputy, is tripartism at its best. Mr. Deputy, you've heard me say in this place before that we are doing so well when it comes to labor in our country that we are being asked and invited by other countries to speak about our progress. And that's not to say that our work has been perfect, but if you were to actually get an overview of labor relations in other countries and look from a wide lens, you would realize how much progress the Bahamas has made. As simple as having quarterly meetings with representatives from every union. There are many countries, Mr. Deputy, where this is simply not possible because the relationships are just too contentious. But we have these meetings every 3 months and many conversations in between. In fact, quarterly meetings are scheduled for this month. Now, Mr. Deputy, again, this doesn't mean that we won't have bumps in the road or areas where we have disagreements. That's what negotiations are all about. That's when the unions have to play a role, and the union's job is to push for more. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They agitate and they're advocating on behalf of their workers, and I respect that. Yes. And that's why at the end of the day, we're able to get agreements done and work together to map out the future for labor in the Bahamas. Mr. Deputy, while I'm on the topic of the need to create modern policies, I'd like to address a policy change that public servants have needed for years. In the public service, we have what we call a course overload policy. And for those who are unfamiliar, the course overload policy basically states that the government will only recognize a public servant's enrollment in 2 courses at a time. And what this means, if you are to take 5 courses at once, the government would only recognize 2 of those courses. You would have to retake the other courses at your own expense and inconvenience if you wanted the government to recognize them. And this limitation has hindered the professional growth and career progression of hundreds of public servants. And it simply doesn't make sense to have this policy in the 21st century, so we had to make it make sense. At this time, at the time when the policy was made, there was no such thing as online courses or limited opportunities for evening classes. So the logic that a person couldn't be a full-time student taking courses throughout the day and also be a full-time employee of the government was rational. But in the era of flexible courses and online learning, there's no place for such an antiquated policy. The Cabinet of the Bahamas has now amended this policy. Allowing the government to recognize up to 5 simultaneously enrolled courses. And as a result, public servants will now be eligible for the tertiary grant program to attend UB for free. This will help government employees to fulfill their personal ambitions and academic dreams. You know, Mr. Deputy, sometimes it's the little changes like this that can make a big difference in a young person's life. And let's be clear, throughout this term, we've always prioritized young people. Over 2,000 young people under the age of 35 have been hired into the public service since September 2021. And Mr. Deputy, that number makes up nearly 10% of the public service, and that's not counting the young people who are already in the public service. So it's amazing that the decided focus has been on 1.9% as opposed to 10%. But I guess people don't like good news.
Good news don't sell.
Mr. Deputy, we have a lot of dynamic young people working in the government, and under this administration, we have expanded opportunities for their advancement. In the past 3 years, we have promoted 3,500 public servants and more to come. So, Mr. Deputy, any discussion about young people not being advanced is misinformed. That may have been true under our predecessors, but it's not true for us. Kalani, the Minister administration didn't roll out a single public service-wide promotion for the entirety of your term. But it was left to us, the Davis administration, to advance the first public service-wide promotional exercise in over 8 years. I'd like the members opposite to understand that you can't pretend to care about succession planning and opportunities in the public service when you didn't even promote to fill the gaps. And you've heard about this before. The improper management of human resources worsened the hollow middle. We have people in government, we have been in government where a lot of people at the bottom, we have a lot of people at the top, but there weren't enough in the middle posts. But now with our very clearly defined plans for progression, we're properly filling the gaps. As a part of this process, we have limited the number of returning pensioners to below 2% of the public service. And in the Ministry of Public Service, we ensured that promotions process was not affected by this. What really impacted young people's careers was the huge promotions backlog we inherited from the Minister administration. Not prioritizing promotions is what hurt progression in the public service. And that is why we made it priority to reduce the backlog as swiftly as possible. Mr. Deputy, while I'm on the topic of young people in this country, I want to correct some misinformation that I've also heard repeated in the House and in the media about the PSPEP program. When we first announced that we had appointed over 700 PSPEP participants to the public service, it was said by our predecessors that they put paperwork in place to regularize 1,200 52-week program participants prior to election. The question was asked, what happened to the other 500? Well, Mr. Deputy, I'm very happy to explain how we ensured that we did not disenfranchise anyone during the regularization process, The fact is that the group of 1,200 that they speak of and the group of the 725 participants are generally comprised of completely different people. The 1,200 participants whose appointment processes were initiated by the Minnis administration were honored by the Davis administration. The vast majority of these participants were appointed and continue to work for the government to this day. However, there were some for whom the process was not properly administered. Rather than continuing to let these participants slip through the cracks created by the F&M's rushed, botched, pre-election process, we transitioned these participants into our new PSPEP program. And as a result, they continued to work under that program for the past 3 years without disruption to their income and surely without being terminated. That small group has now been appointed to the public service as a part of the recent batch of 725 participants. Additionally, there were about 54 individuals, mostly from the Family Islands, who received letters under the Minnis administration that were never appropriately actioned on the government payroll. These participants were addressed as well. They were actioned on the payroll to receive their payments retroactive to 2020. This granted them the job stability they needed to pursue loans and make plans they were holding back on due to lack of stability without being disenfranchised financially. So, Mr. Deputy, if we do the math, the day before, if we do the math, that means we have regularized the 1,200 people the F&M left hanging in their botched, incomplete process, plus the 700 we regularized through the PSPEP. That's approximately 1,900 young people for anyone that's keeping count. The day before election, yes.
Everybody eats, Minnis. Everybody eats under us.
But they should know we never leave young people hanging. We're the ones expanding opportunities for young people. And on that note, we don't let, no. On that note, in just a matter of weeks, Mr. Deputy, the first ever cohort of the National Apprenticeship Program will commence, providing more opportunities for young people to receive paid and employment opportunities in the maritime industry. The program will then be expanded to other in-demand industries. And Mr. Deputy, all of these priorities are reflected in our mid-year budget before us today. The Ministry of Labor and the Public Service is pushing this agenda forward without any reallocations, without requesting any additional funding to our budget. We are delivering our agenda on time, on budget, and on target. Our goals are ambitious. We want to drive unemployment down even further until we have achieved full employment. We want to get Bahamians signed up on the Labor Skills Bank so that we can facilitate recruitment and hiring in the public and private sectors and have an accurate view of the level of talent available in the country. We are securing opportunities for qualified Bahamians through enforcement of our notice of vacancy policies to put employers on notice that Bahamian understudies must be prepared to fill roles to the highest levels. We have to create, and we will create, a 21st century public service providing high-quality service to the public. And I hear the public say promotions are happening, industrial agreements are being signed, but we also are ensuring training to ensure that we are delivering high-quality service to the public. We are operating efficiently and productively in well-equipped workspaces conducive to worker well-being. And we want to ensure that public servant wages and benefits continue to increase over time to better recruit and retain talent. In fact, we want to ensure that Bahamians in every sector can work with dignity and respect while receiving decent pay and engaging in fulfilling work. We want to upskill young people with employability issues so that we can bring youth unemployment down and set our young people up for rewarding careers. This is what we're working toward, Mr. Deputy, every day. We have made more progress on some goals than others, but we're headed in the right direction for all of them. Most importantly, We won't ever stop pushing until we have achieved all of our goals. We won't ever throw in the towel because that's just not a part of our strategy. Through competent, compassionate leadership, we will build a safe, fairer, more prosperous Bahamas. And I have no doubt, Mr. Deputy, that we can achieve this level of transformation because I know what Bahamians are capable of. I see the vast potential every day. And through God's grace, and His grace is sufficient, we will transform this nation for the better in every major area: the economy, employment, national security, health, education, energy, agriculture and fisheries, tourism, and infrastructure development. We must do it all. The work will be difficult. We won't always see immediate results for our efforts, but we have a clear and cohesive plan for widespread upliftment and empowerment of the Bahamian people because, Mr. Deputy, it's always about the people. I believe that this mid-year budget reflects our people-focused agenda. Thank you to our Prime Minister for the opportunity to continue to serve in his cabinet as we deliver our change agenda. Thank you to the people of Golden Gates for the absolute privilege in serving you. And thank you, Mr. Deputy, for the opportunity to contribute to this important debate today as we drive progress in this nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. As many, the Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Tall Pines.
Thank you so much, Mr. Deputy. I too would like to join in welcoming the young people to Parliament. And hopefully today will be one of those good days where we are able to demonstrate excellent behavior. Mr. Deputy, this morning I rise to give God thanks for allowing me another opportunity to stand to my feet and to update this Parliament on what we have been doing in my ministry over the last 7 months. The good thing about this midterm budget debate is the fact that we'll be right back here in a few months to debate the 2025-2026 budget, where I intend to go into full details of what my ministry is doing to speak about union agreements, medical training and recruitment, hospital and clinic development, while articulating our transformative agenda for healthcare reform across the country. And during my last budget communication, I foreshadowed my ministry's plan to move the chronic drug prescription plan from NIB to the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Well, I'm pleased to report to this Honourable House that the management of the NIB chronic drug prescription plan is now nested in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Much work has already been done with our partners from NIB, NHI, to move this plan to its final destination, which is the National Health Insurance Authority. To facilitate this transition, I plan to lay a compendium of bills, mainly the new NHI Bill 2025, that would repeal and replace the current NHI Act, along with amendments to the Pharmacy Act, the NIB Chronic Drug Prescription Plan Act. And once these bills are debated, passed, and gazetted, my ministry will finalize the necessary legal adjustment, taking us closer to universal health care coverage by way of national health insurance. This move by our administration was foreshadowed by the famous SANAGES report, which outlined a pathway to universal health coverage, completed under the former Christie administration, and once again outlined in our blueprint for change. Mr. Deputy, the NHI is our baby, launched in 2016 under the PLP administration, and once again, fate will have it that we will continue the heavy lifting as we push forward to the second phase, which is universal catastrophic health insurance. Yes. Yesterday, while on his feet, the member for East Grand Bahama lambasted our administration about placing VAT on medication and breadbasket items. And for cheap political points, he tried to paint a picture that all of us on this side is insensitive, cold, and have become callous. Mr. Deputy, as far from the truth, I need to spend a few minutes to correct the misconception laid by the member for East Grand Bahama, because if the truth be told, our administration is heading in the right direction, implementing a more robust universal primary health care coverage. As it stands, the NIB chronic drug prescription plan, now managed by my ministry and currently providing free drugs for chronic non-communicable diseases for just over 44,000 Bahamians, mainly governed by healthcare workers and their families. Once transferred to NHI, the 160,000 plus registered NHI members who suffer from chronic non-communicable diseases like hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, certain types of cancers, renal insufficiency, mental illness, and other illnesses will finally have access to life-changing medications free of charge. This is a huge initiative by our administration and will change medical outcomes. While the member for Parliament for East Grand Bahamas was referencing VAT on prescription drugs, our administration will be offering free medications to Bahamian citizens across the country suffering from chronic non-communicable diseases. Yes, under the complete universal primary health care package, NHI patients will see the doctor free, will get lab and diagnostics free, and very soon medications for chronic non-communicable diseases will be provided free of charge in both the private and public sector for those clinics who receive or accept NHI. Yes, you heard it right. Free medications for chronic non-communicable diseases for patients with NHI across the country in both the public and private sector. This new policy decision is our administration way to help the poor, the unemployed.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
Only because the member of Parliament for Tall Pines, who is my friend, who spoke and called my name. But, Mr. Deputy, I wonder if the member for Tall Pines can confirm when they are going to remove VAT from medication for everyone else.
I thought you had a point of order. You're my friend. I thought you had a point of order. I will continue, and we'll get back to you when we wrap up. Okay, all right. This new policy decision by our administration would not only help the poor, the unemployed, but it will also keep money in the pockets of our constituents. But it would also improve medical compliance and keep patients out of hospital, improve clinical outcomes for thousands of NHI patients across the country. Mr. Deputy, the second powerful social, economic, and public health initiative announced by our Prime Minister, and it is the 50% VAT reduction on food items. This announcement is a powerful social initiative. I want to say it again. It's a powerful social initiative by our administration, and we will not allow the members opposite to downplay it. If the truth be told, they had the opportunity to do so, but instead increase VAT on the backs of the poor when they promised not to do so on the campaign trail. But I want to let them know that as a responsible government, we do polling. And across the country, many Bahamians are very excited and grateful about this 50% VAT reduction on food and are looking forward for the benefits early next month. A few days ago, I met a constituent in the food store who expressed her gratitude for the 50% VAT reduction on wholesome food, and not just bread basket items, which in principle are unhealthy choices. Look at the bread basket items: white flour, white sugar, white grits, all of the things that proliferate chronic non-communicable diseases. Finally, patients suffering from hypertension, diabetes, and other chronic non-communicable diseases will have healthy, affordable choices at the food store, and the public health benefits will go a long way. And for the children, for their lunch packages, wholesome juices, good quality selections. Mr. Deputy, I support this timely progressive policy reform that is accentuating my ministry's health and wellness nutritional program across the country. And I want to thank my colleagues and our Prime Minister and all the representatives from the Ministry of Finance for this initiative that is now reducing VAT by 50% on foods in our grocery store. Mr. Deputy, this is what real visionary, compassionate leadership look like. And we on this side are proud of these new social initiatives. I intend to go into more details about these life-changing initiatives: free medication for those suffering from chronic non-communicable diseases, and the 50% VAT reduction in food at our grocery stores in the upcoming weeks leading to the 2025-2026 budget. Mr. Deputy, despite the naysayers and those on the opposite side, healthcare is on the move. And as our administration continue to work on behalf of the Bahamian people and position ourselves for a second term in office, I remain grateful to the wonderful people of Tall Pines for this opportunity to serve, and I will continue to do my best for my constituents in this honorable place. I wish to thank both Minister Bell and Ramming. Give it up for Bell and Ramming for their effort. And this morning I'm pleased to announce that after 3 years of pushing, a Tall Pines Urban Renewal Center is finally nested in Tall Pines. It's open, it's on Fate and Ballard Road, and I believe with all the great things Urban Renewal is doing, I am confident that this new Urban Renewal Center will address many of the complex challenges and social needs affecting my constituents. Mr. Deputy, numbers don't lie. And evidence-based information is paramount for shaping public policy. My ministry's most recent STEP survey, in collaboration with the Pan American Health Organization, verified the sobering facts that more than 12% of the Bahamian population is living with diabetes. And what's even more damning is the fact that 7% are pre-diabetic and the cases are increasing. Cardiovascular disease remained the #1 cause of death in the country, and despite our efforts, non-communicable diseases have reached the pandemic proportions in the last decade. Mr. Deputy, do you know that 80% of non-communicable diseases are preventable? And with health education, physical activity, nutritional counseling, lifestyle modifications, we can achieve better clinical outcomes in the country. The sobering reality is that many of our people are losing their limbs, their vision, their independence, and ultimately their lives to chronic non-communicable diseases that are completely preventable. Chronic renal failure is an all-time high, and the most recent numbers confirm that more than 600 plus Bahamians, both young and old, are on the government-funded hemodialysis program. And the scary part is, many more are suffering with end-stage renal disease and are on the waiting list. This silent epidemic is robbing lives and stealing our loved ones away from us. Our dialysis centers are overflowing with patients, and we are running out of options. This is why we are addressing this life-threatening problem from every direction, inclusive of prevention, reduction on wholesome foods, treatment, and yes, the launch of a kidney donor transplant program. Mr. Deputy, we don't need numbers to tell the story. We in the Ministry of Health and Wellness see the devastating effect of end-stage renal disease every day. We see the long lines in our clinics, the worried faces of our patients who fear the next step in their medical treatment. Mr. Deputy, these are not just statistics. They are our constituents. They are our families. They are from our communities all across the country. They tell the real story of a nation affected by chronic diseases brought on by lifestyle choices. Mr. Deputy, when the Prime Minister invited me to serve as Minister of Health and Wellness, I knew the weight of this 24-hour job and the great responsibility that comes along with it. I knew that there were many fires burning in the Ministry of Health, and the problem we faced were deep-rooted, complex, with no quick fix. I knew that in every direction, whether it is in our hospitals, our clinics, our manpower shortages, patient access to care, or our ability to manage chronic non-communicable diseases, we were facing serious health challenges across the country and could not be solved by simple adjustments or temporary fixes. It would take planning, serious funding, patient education, legislative reform, recruitment training, as well as infrastructural upgrade to all of our crumbling hospitals and clinics across the country. Let me be clear, Mr. Deputy. The crisis in our healthcare system today is not the result of a overburdened healthcare system and did not happen overnight. It is a direct and shameful consequence of unintentional neglect on both sides of the political divide, and in some instances, reckless selfishness by members of the Free National Movement. Mr. Deputy, the former Minister of Health, Dr. Dwayne Sands, confirmed what we already knew. The Minister's administration did not prioritize health care. In Dr. Sands' own words, and I quote, "I did not think that under our watch we got the level of funding support that we should have gotten that it deserved." And even more damning, he admitted that I believe there were priorities of the minister's cabinet that did not put healthcare net at top of the list. Wow. Certainly not during the first 3 years of our administration. Wow. These are Dr. Sands' words. Wow. Mr. Deputy, wow. They should hold their head down in shame. While Bahamians were suffering, while people were waiting for months on life-saving treatments, while our healthcare workers were crying out for help, while our doctors and nurses had no signed industrial agreement, Minister and Sands were locked in a petty power struggle, playing petty politics. Instead of coming together to fix the challenges in our healthcare system, they were too busy fighting each other. Instead of opting to settle personal scores. As a result of this infighting, Little or none was done at the Princess Margaret Hospital, and the public health system was crumbling under their watch. The majority of our clinics in Nassau.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Anne's.
Ask him. Ask him. Yeah.
Honourable
So
member.
let me speak then for Charlotte. The point of order is that Tall Pines has stood here now and told all F&Ms to hold our heads down in shame. I'm an F&M, and I'll never hold my head down in shame, Tall Pines. And you, Tall Pines, should be ashamed for your own record. 3 years in government now, and yesterday we had reports that in the Rand Memorial Hospital in Grand Bahama, there are rats infesting the hospital because someone has a major contract in New Providence
Order,
for
members.
waste collection, and it's building up. Bio-waste is building up in the Rand Memorial Hospital. The PLP should hold their head down in shame. That is on your watch. You may not have a Rolex, but you should learn to tell the time.
So, Mr. Deputy, can I continue?
I see you even have the kids excited now. So
Mr. Deputy, under their watch, everything was crumbling in the healthcare system. The majority of our clinics in Nassau, Grand Bahama, and Family Island were left in complete disrepair. The PMH was crumbling with wards gutted and dysfunctional under their watch, and because of petty politics, they were unable to carry out the people's mandate clearly articulated in the institution visionary statement. Mr. Deputy, days after being named the Minister of Health and Wellness, I met a male patient from Eleuthera who had to be flown out for an emergency flight because the clinic had no resources. A mother in Nassau who sat for hours in the waiting room praying for her child with COVID-19 would be seen and admitted before too late. She paid the price. An elderly dialysis patient in Grand Bahama waiting for surgical intervention for a non-functional fissure necessary to receive life-saving treatment, and the question was why? Because egos that resulted in poor management of our patients. Yes, under their watch, Bahamians suffered because two men, both doctors, elected as parliamentarians, could not put their differences aside long enough to focus on what you were elected to do. The truth of the matter is, the former F&M administration squandered a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And what is so ironic, now that they're in opposition, both Dr. Sands and Dr. Minnis have all the answers for health care. Mr. Deputy, that is not what mature leadership looked like. Mr. Deputy, leadership is not about settling personal scores. It's not about optics. It's not about political revenge. Leadership is about protecting the people you serve. It's about making the tough decisions in great adversity, even when they are unpopular. It is about stepping up when the country needs you most. The former administration failed the leadership test and did not lead by example. But, Mr. Deputy, what the former administration saw as crisis and failed to deliver on, this administration see it as opportunity for improvement. We can either continue to treat healthcare as a system that reacts to people who are sick, or we can build on the work to keep them healthy. We can either watch our hospitals struggle under the weight of chronic non-communicable diseases, or we can invest in primary and preventative care that makes Bahamians more accessible and easy detection for chronic diseases. Mr. Deputy, a strong healthcare system does not exist in isolation. It is built on the foundation of a strong economy, young people. Without economic growth, we cannot invest in hospitals, expand healthcare services, or recruit doctors and nurses in country and out of country. Without financial stability, we cannot ensure that every Bahamian, no matter their background or income, has access to a healthcare system that is functioning and they deserve. That is why our administration has been focusing on two critical objectives: restoring the economy and rebuilding healthcare infrastructure. Mr. Deputy, under the leadership of our Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Brave Davis, we have turned the economy around. When we came to office, the country was saddled with debt. Government revenue was in crisis. Investor confidence was at an all-time low. We did not run from the tough decisions. We stabilized public finances, restored economic growth, and create fiscal space necessary to fund essential projects in healthcare. We have seen record levels of foreign direct investment. Unemployment is down, revenue collection is up, investment confidence is coming back to the country. And because of this economic turnaround, we are now in a position to make the long overdue investment in healthcare that the former administration was unable to do. This is why we are building hospitals, expanding and modernizing clinics, hiring and training healthcare workers, strengthening national health insurance. Now that this happens because we have been working. This is the difference our administration is making. That is the reason we are able to invest in healthcare at an unprecedented level. Not long ago, a young woman from Cat Island told me about the need to have blood works and x-rays done in her community rather than going into New Providence for simple x-rays and blood tests. This is the reality we inherited. A healthcare system whose access depends too much on where you live, and too often people are slipping through the cracks. That is the changing phenomena that we are doing in the country. For 3 years, in the midst of great challenges, our administration have been rebuilding the Ministry of Health and Wellness into something stronger, an institution that not just reacts to crisis, but plans, builds, and delivers for the people we are privileged to serve. I have been ensuring that decisions are made faster and resources go where they need to go so that Bahamians can access these essential services. And yes, Mr. Deputy, our ministry is only as strong as the professionals who serve in it. That is why we are prioritizing recruitment, training for healthcare workers, because a model hospital is nothing without skilled, dedicated, compassionate healthcare workers. This is what transformative change is all about. Mr. Deputy, the Ministry of Health and Wellness is no longer simply managing systems. It is leading a movement to make sure no Bahamians are left behind when it comes to healthcare. A movement that builds stronger, fairer, and better health services across the country. A movement that will not stop until every Bahamian on every island has access to the care they truly deserve. Mr. Deputy, there's a saying that if you want to understand a government's priorities, look at where they choose to invest. Well, Mr. Deputy, look around. For the first time in decades, we are making the investments necessary to modernize and expand our healthcare services. Not words, but actions. In concrete, steel, in real changes that you could see and touch. Not long ago, I met an elderly woman from South Andros at the Miriam Green Clinic who told me how she had to travel to Nassau just to get routine blood tests. A man from San Salvador spoke about how the Kirkbourne Clinic were barely equipped to handle the most basic emergency and we were unable to meet the memorandum of understanding signed by Club Med. These are not isolated stories. This was the state of healthcare in the Bahamas that we met, and we are changing it. We are making the largest investment in healthcare infrastructure in a generation. Yes. Clinics across New Providence, Grand Bahama, the Family Island are being upgraded, expanded with lab and diagnostics. In South Andros, renovations are complete, and new medical equipment are being installed. In North Andros, Mastic Point, Nicholstown clinics are being modernized. In Eleuthera, Harbor Island, Spanish Well, Bogue, James Siston, Lower Bogue clinics are being upgraded. And we're not stopping there. We broke ground on the new Mangrove Key Clinic, the Palmetto Point Clinic. And I'm pleased to report to this honorable House that the new Coconut Grove Clinic, as promised in New Providence, will be built. And will serve both the Anglican and St. Barnabas community and surrounding areas. In the Berry Islands, new clinic will be built in partnership with Royal Caribbean via an IDB funding. Clinics in Moores Island, Black Point are definitely in the final stages for groundbreaking. In Cat Island, we are working on the Orange Street Clinic. The Old Bite Clinic is near completion, and final approvals have already been in place for the new Stevenson Clinic. Mr. Deputy, this is what progress looks like. And when we talk about capital works, we must talk about hospitals. At the Princess Margaret Hospital, the long overdue expansion of the accident emergency is near completion. In Grand Bahama, we are seeing the final touches on the Rand Memorial Hospital. Yesterday, members of Central Grand Bahama showed pictures of some areas used to store medical waste, trying to create the impression of neglect and poor management by our authorities. It was not only distasteful, the member of St. Anne's got to his feet and joined the bandwagon, and politically driven by members who work at the facility. I want to show the real pictures. You saw something on the internet. When we were cleaning up, I want to show you the real picture of how the area truly looks.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Central Grand Bahama.
There was no intention to downplay the efforts of the staff at the Rand Memorial Hospital. They do not collect trash. They do not collect debris. The trash pileup was a matter of, I visited the site. The trash pileup is on the site, and the road came into the front door and other areas came as a result of the trash that was on the site. I pointed that out to bring attention to the matter, and I was told that yesterday they started to clean up. So obviously the presentation had an effect. It was to bring attention to what's going on, and of course, the condition has been improved. So there was no effort to insult any of the staff. So I want to put it on the record. There's no effort. The picture, it is my job to bring it to the attention. And the pictures what I shared, I saw it myself. The pictures what I shared was not Photoshopped. They were real pictures of real events at the Rand Memorial Hospital in Freeport.
What you did was distasteful, poor points. Mr. Deputy, I hope my time is stopped. I need 2 more minutes. Mr. Deputy, we are delivering on the promise for the state-of-the-art Freeport Health Campus that will transform healthcare for Grand Bahama and in the northern region. In the midterm budget communication, the member for Cat Island, Rumpke, and San Salvador spoke about the resolution to borrow $75 million to further fund the Grand Bahama Health Campus and to do the necessary remedial works at the Princess Margaret Hospital. The member of Kalani said it was pie in the sky. But look what the Lord has done. While the Chinese Exim Bank funding for the new hospital in New Providence is near completion, we in the Ministry of Health will remain focused to our objective.
Honorable member, you have 2 minutes to...
Thank you so much. Mr. Deputy, This is how you build a strong healthcare system. Not just by investing in infrastructure, but also investing in people. For far too long, our healthcare workers were taken for granted. We value them. We support them. And it's ensuring that we have the resources to invest in them. Healthcare should not be a safety net. Healthcare should be a safety net, not a financial trap. It should protect the vulnerable, not push them into poverty. This David Lair's administration will not ignore what we have found, and we will continue to work to save lives and improve livelihoods. Over the past 3 years, I have met with countless Bahamians across the countries, and I understand all of the challenges we face. I have spoken to nurses working double shift in overcrowded hospitals. I have met with doctors frustrated with outdated equipment. I have held the hands of patients who simply want to get better and want to re-engage with their families. I have listened. I understand the problems. We have taken real steps to make these into reality and to modernize our hospitals and clinics, expanding healthcare coverage, investing in digital transformation, strengthening mental health services, and creating opportunities for new medical advancements. We have done the hard work and the heavy lifting, and we have a lot more work to do. It's about making sure that Bahamians will not suffer any longer in silence, making sure that they have access to healthcare services that they can depend on. Mr. Deputy, this is why we will not waver. We will not stop. We will not stop until every Bahamian, no matter where they live in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, or whatever socioeconomic status they fall in, all should have accessibility to quality, affordable health care. We will not stop until families no longer have to choose between medical treatment and rent. We will not stop until we have to build healthcare systems where people will be proud of. This is our commitment to the Bahamian people, and this is what we're delivering. No more will we allow our healthcare system to crumble to what we found when we came to office. A lot more will be said in the budget debate that will come in 2025, 2026, and I look forward to inform the Bahamian people further of what has been happening in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Central
Mr. Deputy,
Grand
thank you very
Bahamas.
much, Mr. Deputy. It is my duty to point out any inefficiencies that I see anywhere in the Bahamas, in particular on my island. When I spoke to the issues of the trash buildup at the Rand Memorial Hospital, it is a fact. But I also mentioned that the mammogram machine is not working at the Rand. I want to hear what the solution for that is. I also mentioned that the freezer is not working, and it's a fact that meat are stored off-site, opening up the possibility of cross-contamination at the Rand Memorial Hospital. So we all also like to hear what the solutions are to those problems. It's a fact, and we want to hear what is the solution. I'm hoping, like we stated yesterday in here, that there's a trash buildup, and I'm happy to see the pictures now. So obviously, action was taken after the revelation. So hopefully, the mammogram machine, as well as the freezer, will be fixed.
The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Tall Pines.
Central Grand Bahama.
Photos are taken in the day.
The Rand Memorial Hospital, as well as the Grand Bahama Health Services, we collect waste products, medical waste. The incinerator at the Rand Memorial Hospital is old, is dated, and on close examination, it was found to be emitting toxic fumes into the atmosphere, and we shut it down. Okay. We are now addressing that issue, and while we're addressing the issue, we are removing medical waste from Grand Bahama by way of a barge to New Providence because in Grand Bahama, there is no company who is prepared to accept the medical waste. The pictures you saw was pictures taken while the containers were being filled for export via a boat to New Providence. This is something that has been ongoing for the last few months, and it is something that we are addressing. And we are looking for a company in Grand Bahama who are prepared to accept the medical waste. But to stand to your feet and create the impression that it is complete neglect and our staff has become callous and not doing their job is completely inaccurate, distasteful, and definitely is not doing anything effective for the residents of Grand Bahama. That's what I say. I have a right to say what I have to say. Yes, it's my opinion. I have an opinion. I have my opinion. I have my opinion. I clarified your facts. I clarified your facts.
Honorable member for Central
The
Grand
Rand
Bahama.
Memorial Hospital has challenges, but it is a fine institution and providing health care for thousands of Grand Bahamians. Member for Central Grand Bahama, I showed the pictures of the site, the storage site.
Taken in daytime.
I showed the picture
In daytime.
after the trailer was loaded and exported to New Providence for destruction. It has been going on for months. It's been going on for months. Now, I don't need to continue it, but you also indicated and showed a picture that was posted on social media where a rodent was entering into the Rand Memorial Hospital. And you created an impression that the medical waste was the cause of it. That is incorrect. It's an incorrect and distasteful. Rats in this building. They're in this building. Yeah. Between me and you, sir, these issues are being addressed. The Rand Memorial Hospital is a clean institution.
Thank you, honorable member. As many, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
Thank Don't start that yet. They still making noise. They still making noise. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy,
They were not pets, they were rats.
I was not scheduled to speak at this time. The speaker is now walking in. But after I can yield.
He want prime time. He want prime time.
But after listening to the member for Tall Pines, I'm happy to speak at this time. Mr. Deputy, before I start, I want to extend condolence to Kelly Ingram, to the Ingram's families on the death of their daughter, Kelly Ingram, who was just recently buried. I had known her personally from a young girl, watched her become a matured, very intelligent young lady. Kelly has made great contribution to this country. As a matter of fact, as Prime Minister, I had appointed her as chairman of the Straw Market Authority, and she had done an excellent job there. In fact, she'd made great changes there in terms of lighting, airflow, and improving the comfort of the vendors there, in spite of the challenges that she faced. And I know that Kelly had a great future ahead of her, and I have no doubt that she would have made greater contribution to this country, even greater than that of her father. And I extend condolence to the Ingram family and may she rest in peace. But I have to speak today, Mr. Deputy. I wanted to find out what did Tall Pine eat today. Because I've never seen him so driven and motivated. And I mean, he has really put fire in me. And therefore I didn't want to run down the road with health, but I will touch it a little. But I want to make my contribution, Mr. Deputy, to this mid-year budget debate. I want to say that the so-called New Day administration is on the back half of its term. We likely have just 2 budgets left, then the people will pass judgment on all that they did and all that they did not do. And if you listened to the bragging of the Prime Minister and others, you'd think that it is all well. And there are no problems in our country. Our PM lives in a world of fantasy and make-believe. Mr. Deputy, the truth is that so much that should be addressed is not being tended to, because this administration focus is constant traveling, empty public relations, and taking care of PLPs. And I want to say, Mr. Deputy, PLPs loves to pretend that our economy is soaring. That, of course, is not the case. The pandemic was a difficult period in our country, and our people persevered. Nonetheless, coming out of it ready to thrive once again. Mr. Deputy, ever since the PLP took over government, they started off with mismanagement and on a bad foot. And the member for Tall Pine spoke about COVID. But let's look at some facts. And everybody, turn your TV and your dial up. Because you're going to hear facts. Mr. Deputy, when we were faced with COVID, the world, nobody understood COVID. There was no medication, no vaccine, no mask, no PPEs. Hospitals were inadequate. Beds were inadequate. Oxygen was inadequate. All we had was the little knowledge from past experience of 1918 when there was the last pandemic. And we knew that time that once individuals stayed apart and you avoid congregation, they survived. Now, let's look at facts. When the PLP took over, more than 100,000 people were vaccinated. Facts. Vaccines were available. Facts. Oxygen available. Beds were available. Hospitals had improved. Medication for COVID were available. PPEs were available. So, Mr. Deputy, one group, us, had nothing. The other group, them, inherited everything. All the medications were available. Now let's look at the facts. They managed the COVID for a shorter time than us who had no medication. In spite of that, 28 individuals died per month under the PLP. Per month? Per month. 28? While it was 29 per month under the FNM with no medication. 47% of the COVID infections occurred under the PLP with medications. 40% of the deaths occurred under the PLP with medication. And let's look at the numbers. Under the PLP with all the medication, 1,504 cases of COVID per month with medication. and all the knowledge under the FNM with nothing. 1,178 cases per month. In other words, with the height, if the evidence suggests facts, I speak only facts, keep the dial up. The evidence suggests that if the PLP was in power at the time we were with no medication, I wouldn't have to be listening to you because you'd be dead.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Tall Pines.
The member of Kalani is obviously fantasizing. Fantasizing based on his warped statistical analysis. The reality is, under his watch, very few people were tested. You didn't even have the PPEs and the kits to do the testing you needed. So the reality is, for the first time in the management of the pandemic, the Progressive Liberal Party demonstrated the way how a pandemic should be managed. Stop fantasizing, man.
See, I thought he had such energy, but it's somehow his air is clogged up because he's not hearing what I said. Mr. Deputy, the evidence are here that had they been in charge, the Bahamas would have been a different Bahamas because the death numbers would have been so high. We saw what was happening in Brazil. Mr. Deputy.
Honorable member, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Tall Pines.
It is in your own mind. In your own mind, my friend from Kalani. If you have all this evidence, table it.
The record, we will not be moved by LD today. Now, they know what I'm talking about when I said LD. You know. Mr. Deputy, the record also shows that economic growth started at the end of our term. And the New Day administration inherited an improving situation from the worst of those dark, hard days. What has happened now is a slowing of our economy from the post-pandemic euphoria. Mr. Deputy, what was needed was for the PLP administration to have ideas and policies to grow the economy from where it was once things stabilized. That has not happened. The data the Prime Minister presented shows that, facts now, the economy grew by 2.6% in 2023. It slowed to 1.9% in 2024. And this year, the economy is forecast to grow by just 1.7%. Stopover arrivals were flat last year, equaling the number that came to the Bahamas the previous year. Our stopover visitor numbers are flat, while most of the region has seen an increase. What are they doing wrong? The government has not put in place a plan to increase the more lucrative stopover visitors, which will help to boost growth. The Prime Minister knows this growth is too slow. Yet he tried to suggest the figures do not capture the true scope of what is going on with economic activity. However, Mr. Deputy, the numbers are the numbers. It is his math that isn't mathing. No ideas, no plan, and low growth. That is the PLP administration under this Prime Minister. In the context of this slowing economy, the PLP is spending like there is no tomorrow on its supporters. The deficit is much higher than was forecast. The member for St. Barnabas has pointed out that this New Day administration has already spent nearly $250 million on consultants. That does not include the hundreds of other millions of dollars that have gone to PLP contractors. As you drive around, Just look and see all the cleaning that's going on. Contracts, left, right, and center. You like it? Left, right, and center. You like it? Then there is the constant luxury travel. The millions and millions that are being wasted by the PLP on living the good life abroad is extraordinary. In this mid-year review, we see that between July and December, the government spent $10 million on travel and subsistence. They are all over the place, shuffling money from this allocation and that allocation to feed their massive appetite for travel, living their best life. And despite all that is being spent on PLPs by the administration, many are not satisfied. The plenty they already got is not enough for the all for me baby crowd. I understand, Mr. Deputy. I understand that there are fights in the PLP to get even more. I'm told that some who have gotten some of the biggest amounts are still not satisfied. They are pressuring the PLP politicians for even more contracts, more jobs, and more liaison. This is greed gone. This is greed gone to bed. You don't know liaison? Go look it up. The country. Ask any of those kids that were here. The country cannot get out of this low growth, stuck trajectory when its leaders are primarily focused on enriching their own. This is the trajectory I didn't say on yourselves.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Freetown.
Is Kalani disagreeing with the assessment of the IMF? He's an expert at everything else. If he says that he disagrees with them, then we can just understand that he just knows it all.
I don't understand your question. That is why they are accomplishing so little. Despite all the talk, you know, during the last debate, as a famous president, he said, I don't think he understood what he said. Despite all the talk, they have not finished any major investment projects. Indeed, some of the things they brag about in Grand Bahama were initially negotiated by the previous FNM administration. Go check. Go read your book. In the PLP's Blueprint Manifesto, the Prime Minister promised to offer relief and dignity to Bahamians and create a more dynamic, more inclusive economy. What we have under the PLP is one of the greatest transfers of wealth from government to party supporters that the Bahamas has ever seen. Our economy is even more unequal under this group entitled All For Me, Baby. They are progressive in name only. In their policies, they're taxing breadbasket items. They are regressive. Just the other day, we witnessed yet another example of how well they treat their own. The Minister of Labor told this House that nearly 500 retirees were brought back to service, and nearly all of them are making salaries, pensions, and benefits. The PLP has tried to spin this issue all types of ways, but the Bahamian people wasn't buying it. They know what really went down. The administration has brought back their supporters on sweetheart deals. These lucky supporters now get to make more money than they have ever made in their lives using taxpayer money.
Yeah. The chair recognizes the honourable member for Golden Gates.
I respect my elders, and I really did not want to. I did no, man, Doc. Sika Kalani is good people. I respect my elders, so I did not want to interrupt. But I have two, so I'll take my time and use my 2 points of order. Doc, I want you to understand, and you are April born and a Saxon, so, you know, I respect you. But Kalani, I'm standing on 2 points of order at this point. You made a comment initially in your presentation about deaths during this administration, COVID deaths during this administration. We'd just like you at the end to lay the evidence of that. If not, then if you could retract that. Regarding the rehires, I just want to put on record, and I thought we did before, that many of our retirees who have been retained, we met them in place. We did not send them home. We kept them, which means that they were engaged under the former administration.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Point of order, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The statement suggesting that the 230 policemen, all of whom were retained, having retired before 50, are all PLP supporters, and somehow that we cherry pick, while we would love them all to be PLP supporters, that is disparaging the persons who aren't in the House, as it is to correctional officers who are brought back regardless of political affiliation, and Royal Bahamas Defense Force Marines, all of whom retire currently before 60. It is disparaging to the persons of those forces who are not in this House to defend themselves.
Mr. Deputy, the evidence speaks for itself. They were receiving all their pensions, etc. And that's how the New Day administration rolls. They get their people straight and do not care how bad it looks. Again, the Bahamian people know that what the PLP is doing is wrong. If the deputy allow me at the end, I want to answer all of you and expand, but I'm not going to take up my time now to get into that. Bahamas Public Service Union President Kingsley Ferguson told the Nassau Guardian the practice of rehiring retired civil servants decimated morale in the public sector. There's also been strong criticism online and on social media for what the PLP is doing. The people's anger toward the Davis administration is full-blown and getting worse by the day. Mr. Deputy, another example of PLP dealings that are good for them and not for the people is the scandal in Exuma regarding the Bahamas Mooring Limited. Sit down and listen. The company was given a seabed lease, I will go slow, of approximately 4,600 acres in Exuma to install moorings. The government has had to cancel a deal with the company because of all kinds of irregularities, secret dealings, and conflicts of interest. It was just the latest scandal in a party known for their corruption. The company in question had not received the required legal permits, yet it was doing physical works in Exuma. Listen to me. Additionally, the Deputy Director of Communications in the Office of the Prime Minister signed the lease for the deal as a witness of Bahamas Moorings. Her husband is the president of Bahamas Moorings. The government had to quickly backtrack and stop the secretive deal. There were many questions about what was going on in Exuma and who all was involved in it. Clearly, Mr. Deputy, clearly, there was a conflict of interest with the Prime Minister's Deputy Communications Director serving, on the one hand, as a government official, and on the other, as an agent of Bahamas Mooring. Question is, was she a double agent? And how many other double agents are within the confines of the Office of the Prime Minister? As a result of her actions and this conflict of interest, she must do the honorable thing and resign. Resign as Deputy Director of Communications. In fact, the Prime Minister should demand her resignation immediately. Mr. Deputy, if the Prime Minister does not demand her resignation, it would mean that he condones such conflicts of interest in his administration. It is the Prime Minister who must clean up the mess from this scandal. If he does not, it is clear what message he is sending to the Bahamian people. Is there anyone else? Listen, I'll speak clearly. Is there anyone else in the Prime Minister's office who may have a conflict of interest or who may need to resign? There was something shady about this deal. Bahamians wonder who all had beneficial interest in what was happening in Exuma. Were there other government officials involved? And if so, who are they? Now, I don't ask questions, I know answers now. I call on the Prime Minister to fully disclose all that occurred with the government and Bahamas Moorings. We must remember that the Prime Minister signed the lease. Accordingly, he has a direct responsibility to the country and to Parliament to tell us who was involved in this deal, from the approval process to who was going to benefit. Give the Bahamian people a full accounting of what was transpiring with their national asset of seabed of Exuma, some of the most pristine waters in the world. Now, Mr. Deputy, I want all Bahamas to listen to me carefully. Take that hand from my chin, listen. In 2018, Mr. Deputy, in 2018, my government met and had discussion with respect to moorings. My government was discussing about the introduction of a mooring authority, this 2018, and a PPP, where funds from the mooring authority would go to the respective family islands, the local government, so as to improve development and assist the family islands. That's where we were placing the money. An authority with 2018. I was Prime Minister, he's Prime Minister, he can check the records. He can check the records. The funds were to go to the local government. But Mr. Deputy, what was most important at that time, listen very carefully, at that time was estimated that the income would be about $40 to $50 million a year, 2018. 40 to 50 million per year. These few oligarchs who put such program together with a 25-year lease, you're talking about, now listen carefully, $1.25 billion. $1.25 billion to the so-called oligarchs. The Bahamian people want to know why monies could not go to local government on authority as we were planning. The records are there. I'm speaking as a former Prime Minister now. This is similar to what is happening with Bahamas Grid. This is similar to what's happening with Bahamas Grid. With Bahamas Grid, distribution and transmission, the BPL lines, the government would have infused its asset, which was worth about $100 million, and that $100 million gave the government 40% of Bahamas grid, distribution and transmission. The oligarchs put in $30 million and got 60% of the company. Now, yes, another $100 million had to be raised, and therefore that $100 million went as bonds, $100 million at 8% went as bonds. But, Mr. Deputy, the financial statements, proposals, projections by Kalina for Bahamas Grid projected that at the end of the lease, they would make approximately $500 million. Facts. So the question the Bahamian people want to know, are they the same oligarchs with Bahamas Grid who would make almost $500 million over their lease time? And are they the same individuals who will make $1.25 billion over their lifetime? These are very, very disturbing, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy. You got 5 minutes. And you got 5 minutes? Mr. Deputy, at that time, in 2018, the individuals are still there. In 2018, Exuma, we thought would become the Bahamian boating Riviera. Swimming pigs, swimming with sharks, dripping caves of Exuma, turtles, and Farmers Key.
Member, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Fort Charlotte.
Yeah, on a point of order, the honorable member for Kalani has made reference to some document or documents which he appears to be relying. And as the rules require, he is obligated to do two things. One is to lay it on the table, and number two, adopt whatever the assertions contained therein as his own. And I would like, through you, Mr. Deputy, to challenge this honorable member to lay the documents on the table or to withdraw it.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable member, are you going to lay the documents?
Mr. Deputy, you know, call it no bluff. In 2018, I was the Prime Minister. I know of the meetings. Ranwood Wells was leading the charge in this. We were moving towards the discussion with the establishment of a mooring authority. We knew, just like we did, the overflight service, the fees, and projected that we'd make $50 million, which would have been earmarked for airports. The same principle applied. The $40 to $50 million were going to be earmarked for the Family Island. Check the records in the office of the
Deputy, I didn't ask him whether he was Prime Minister or not. That's not the objection. I've asked, Mr. Deputy, consistent with the rules, 33(1), that this honorable member who purports to be quoting from some documentation, to lay it on the table, and if he is not able to do it, withdraw. That's the rules of the House. Whether he was Prime Minister or not is quite irrelevant to the objection raised.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable member, are you going to withdraw or lay the documents?
I cannot withdraw facts.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Fort
The
Charlotte.
honorable member, the honorable member, the honorable member who is well acquainted with the rules of the House. As you have looked at the camera, you can look at the camera and say, Mr. Deputy, I hereby withdraw, and proceed. And when you have whatever documents you purport to be relying upon, you comply with the rules.
Let me say again. We were establishing the authority, mooring authority. It was projected 2018. So I gave you all the relevant information to go back and check. 2018. It was projected to generate $40 to $50 million that was going to local government.
Yeah. Honorable member,
Now,
honorable member,
an
one
entity
minute, 1 minute.
up,
The
and that
honorable
$40 to $50 million over 25 years represent $1.25 billion.
Yes, honorable member for Kalani, the honorable member for Fort Charlotte is asking a question. Are you going to withdraw, or are you going to lay the documents?
I can answer briefly again.
Okay.
The answer is N-O, capital N-O. What else you want to say? I said no. So sit down. That's not going to change. I'm not withdrawing at this.
If
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Fort Charlotte.
N-O, however he is representing no, I therefore ask the Deputy Speaker that it be stricken from the record.
Immediately.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Anne's.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, you have always proven to be very liberal in the application of the rules and the fairness of all members. And I commend you for that, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Now, if we're going to get into this back and forth between the member for Fort Charlotte trying to be Speaker, the good member for Cat Island should have appointed him to be the Speaker. There is also a rule that members shall not read their speeches. So if you're going to take this stand, every single time one of your juniors begins and stands up and reads their entire speech, I will raise up on a point of order and tell them to sit down. I'm talking to the Speaker for Fort Charlotte.
Members,
we have rules. We have rules, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that are followed and honored, and we have rules that are not followed and honored. For the purpose of fairness in this debate, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and so it doesn't get too far out of place, I would ask Mr. Deputy Speaker to consider the Prime Minister being given the honor and respect that he deserves as a former Prime Minister of the country and being allowed to have his debate remain on the public record because he represents a great constituents of Killarney. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if we were to go by every single rule in the rule book, if any member on the government side stands up to read their speech, and they have a lot of juniors, then I'll ask that you enforce the rules and make them talk about something they know nothing about because it's not written in the head, written on paper by writers for them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, you have the overall authority here. No matter the rules, it's in your discretion.
thank you, honorable member. Before we get honorable member for Fort Charlotte for clarification, can you read the rules to the House, please? Thank you.
Every member desiring to speak shall rise and address the chair. A member may read from extracts from books, journals, papers, and documents, may refresh his memory from notes, but he shall not quote any newspaper unless he adopts such quotation as his own words and such are relevant to the business under the debate. Members, as a general rule, shall not read their speech. This member has referred to documents. He was quoting. He quoted valuation. He purported to have quoted valuation. And he gave the source. He gave the source. You sitting right next. Oh, please. But what is he talking? He quoted. Oh, please.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Are you saying?
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I really don't understand the point made by Sinans. If he says we must all not read speeches, that's fine, because Kalani is reading now. And so nobody is taking objection to him reading. But Kalani is a serial offender of saying he has documents that he will table, and he never tables them. He never ever tables them. He said, Mr. Deputy Speaker, he was going to come and bring the documents to shut me up about the $12.775 million he spent traveling during the COVID year after Dorian, and he never bought those either. And he just keeps pulling things from out of the air. And it's just not a way to properly debate.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
First of all, the whole argument about mooring authority, I read nothing. It all came from my memory as Prime Minister and involvement. So now you want a former Prime Minister to withdraw all of his memory from the past? I'm not supposed to remember anything? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on?
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Mr. Speaker, if Kalani is saying he remembers, then the public can take whether his memory is accurate or not with a grain of salt. But when he says Alfred.
Honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown. Honorable member for Kalani. Honorable member.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, there appears to be a culture that we can stand in this honorable place and just say whatever comes to our minds. It is strange that if he had this great plan to give the local government all this money in 2018, that he didn't do anything in 2018, 2019, 2020, or 2021. He may have forgotten it, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and if he forgot from 2018 to act on it for 3 years, we can question his memory now. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, he referred to other documents. He referred to other documents and other figures. He referred to Kalina's evaluation, and he quoted a figure from it. He quoted a figure from it. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if he is saying, don't rely on Kalina, rely on my memory, that is not what he is saying. And as I say, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, he is a serial offender. He didn't even realize that he gave Metro Security the contract 6 days before the election. He remembered us giving it. He didn't remember something 6 days before the election in 2021, and he expects us to trust his memory from 2018?
Member for Cat Island? Member for Cat Island?
Honorable member for Kalani.
Member for Cat Island?
Yeah, we're going to move on because we'll have that stricken from the record so we can move on.
Member
So
for
I
Cat
think
Island,
we've done that too long.
you are the Prime Minister of this country today. A ruling has just, Speaker just ruled that everything happening now, you must delete your memory between now and when you come out. I've never heard this in my cotton-picking mind. This is so...
Honorable member, the chair made no such ruling. But you can finish. Yes, sir. Honorable member, you have...
Memory. You remember his name? Mr. Speaker, Oh, time run out. No. I want to ask a question. I want to ask a question. Mr. Deputy. Boy. Don't let me sit so no time. Forget me, put it. Forget me, put it. You can leave a club 5 minutes ago. No. This ain't looking good. I've been doing this ain't looking good. Ah. That memory. This ain't looking good. Be in trouble. Anyhow.